It was a night wrapped in mystery and chilling wind when Amelia Wilson arrived at Blackwood Manor. The imposing mansion stood at the edge of the forest, its dark silhouette barely visible under the moonlight. Amelia, an aspiring historian with a fascination for forgotten stories, had been summoned to the manor by a letter that had mysteriously arrived in her hands. The letter, written in elegant but ancient handwriting, spoke of secrets hidden within the walls of Blackwood Manor, secrets that could change the course of history itself. The invitation was signed simply with a name she didn't recognize, the Phantom of Blackwood. Upon her arrival, the gate creaked open with a heavy groan, as though it hadn't been touched in centuries. The mansion loomed before her, its tall windows reflecting nothing but the stormy skies. Amelia felt a cold chill run down her spine, but was determined to uncover the truth behind the mystery. As she stepped inside, the atmosphere seemed to shift. The air was thick with the scent of old wood, dust, and something far more unsettling, a sense of time frozen in place. She was greeted by a servant, an older woman with a hollow look in her eyes. "Welcome to Blackwood Manor, Miss Wilson. You have been expected," the servant said, her voice low and cold. Amelia couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching her, that the walls themselves held stories they would never tell. As the servant led her to her room, she passed a large portrait on the wall, its eyes seeming to follow her every movement. She shivered but kept her composure. This was just the beginning. She would uncover what had been hidden in this place for centuries. Later that evening, Amelia sat in the grand dining hall, where a candlelight dinner had been prepared for her. The long table was adorned with silverware and a fine china set, but the room was eerily silent. Only the faint crackling of the fireplace could be heard, yet it felt as though something or someone was lurking just beyond her sight. Before she could enjoy her meal, a sudden gust of wind blew open the doors, and in walked a tall figure cloaked in shadow. The man's face was hidden by the darkness, but Amelia could feel his presence, the weight of his power, his otherworldly aura. "You must be the historian." The man's voice resonated through the room, deep and unnerving. "I see you've accepted my invitation." Amelia stood up, startled but intrigued. "Who are you?" she asked, trying to maintain her calm. The figure stepped into the light, and Amelia gasped. His face was pale and gaunt, as though he had not seen the light of day in ages. His eyes were an unnatural shade of gold, glowing faintly, and his lips twisted into a sardonic smile. "I am the Phantom of Blackwood," he replied coldly. "I've waited for someone like you to come. But be warned, Miss Wilson, you have crossed into a world where curiosity can lead to destruction." Amelia's heart raced. "What do you mean?" she asked. He walked closer to her, his footsteps silent against the stone floor. "The manor is not what it seems. It holds power that can either save or destroy. But it is not for the faint of heart. If you wish to uncover the truth, you must be prepared to face the consequences." Before Amelia could respond, the figure turned and vanished into the shadows, leaving her with more questions than answers. The words "save" or "destroy" echoed in her mind, and she knew that this was only the beginning of something far darker. The next morning, Amelia began her exploration of the manor. Armed with her notebook and a sense of determination, she searched every corner, every room. But it wasn't until she entered the library that she began to uncover something truly unsettling. The library was vast, filled with shelves of ancient books, scrolls, and manuscripts. Dust settled thickly on the books, but one book in particular caught her attention. It was an old leather-bound journal, placed on a pedestal in the center of the room. The cover was engraved with strange symbols, and the pages within were yellowed with age. As Amelia flipped through the journal, she found it filled with stories of a powerful and malevolent figure, Blackwood himself, the original owner of the manor. The book chronicled his rise to power, his dealings with dark forces, and the curse that he had brought upon the manor. He had made a pact with an entity from the underworld, exchanging his soul for eternal life, but at a terrible cost. The journal revealed the truth. The Phantom was not merely a ghost, but a cursed soul trapped in the manor for eternity, unable to escape the pact he had made. A chilling realization washed over her. Blackwood's curse had not only affected him, but everyone who had ever set foot in the manor. They were all caught in a never-ending cycle, doomed to become part of his dark legacy. Amelia had unknowingly stepped into a web of shadows, and now the only way out was to break the curse or be consumed by it. That night, as Amelia walked through the corridors, trying to digest the horrifying truth she had uncovered, she felt a strange compulsion to return to the library. There, hidden behind a false bookshelf, she discovered a hidden door leading to a small room, a room that seemed to have been untouched by time. Inside the room, she found something that made her blood run cold, a mirror. But it wasn't just any mirror. This one had intricate carvings of mythical creatures around its frame, and its surface shimmered with an unnatural glow. The moment Amelia gazed into it, her reflection flickered and morphed. She saw herself in the same place, but there were two figures standing behind her, figures she didn't recognize. Suddenly, the figures stepped forward, and she felt the cold grip of fear. The reflection of the phantom appeared in the mirror, his gold eyes glowing. "You think you can escape, but you are already part of my world," he whispered, his voice echoing in the stillness. "You have no choice now but to join me." Amelia stumbled back, her heart racing. She had no idea what was happening, but she knew that the mirror held the key to everything, the link between the past, the curse, and the phantom's power. As the days went by, the presence of the phantom seemed to grow stronger. Amelia could no longer ignore the eerie feeling that followed her, the shadows that seemed to move on their own. The mansion was alive with the memories of those trapped within its walls. One night, as she sat by the fire in the main hall, she heard footsteps echoing from the hallway. The door creaked open, and the figure of the phantom appeared once more. "You've come too far, Miss Wilson," he said, his voice heavy with sorrow. "There is no turning back now." Amelia stood up, her mind racing. "Why me? Why did you choose me?" The phantom lowered his gaze, the golden hue of his eyes dimming slightly. "You were always meant to find the truth. Your curiosity brought you here, and now it binds you to this place. You have the power to end it, but it will require a sacrifice, your soul, or your life." Evelyn's breath caught in her throat. She had hoped to break the curse, to free herself from the phantom's grip, but now she saw the impossible choice laid before her. The curse of Blackwood Manor was not something that could simply be undone. It required something far more precious, a price she wasn't sure she could pay. The atmosphere in the manor grew heavier as Evelyn spent sleepless nights weighing the phantom's words. The curse of Blackwood Manor had been placed upon him and all who followed, but the question remained: could she truly end it? Could she sacrifice herself in the process, or find another way to break the cycle? The idea of sacrificing herself terrified her, but the fear of being trapped in this mansion forever was equally daunting. Every corner of the mansion seemed to watch her, as if it held its breath. The walls, covered in age-old paintings of ancestors long forgotten, seemed to whisper as she passed. The mansion itself, once grand, now felt like a tomb, a place where time stood still, where the weight of centuries hung like a shroud. The phantom's presence seemed to pulse in the air, a constant reminder of the malevolent force that ruled this place. Evelyn knew that to find the truth, she had to confront the phantom again, to face whatever dark fate awaited her. She could feel the godlike power that coursed through him, like an unstoppable current that dragged her closer to the edge of destiny. The time had come to make her decision. As she stood in the foyer, facing the entrance where the phantom had last appeared, the door creaked open once more. He stepped into the room, his presence immediately filling the space, his cold eyes locking onto hers. "I see you have made your decision," the phantom spoke softly. His voice held a mix of sadness and inevitability, as if he had known all along that she would not back down. "I need to know," Evelyn replied, her voice steady despite the turmoil within. "What will happen if I free you? What will happen if I don't?" He smiled, a chilling expression that did not reach his eyes. "If you free me, I will be free to walk the earth again." The curse that binds me will be broken, and the souls trapped here will be released, yours included. But the price will be high. You will be bound to the manor, just as I once was. Forever." Evelyn's heart pounded in her chest. The phantom's words echoed in her mind, the weight of her choice suffocating her. She knew that whatever path she took, it would lead to irreversible consequences. But deep down, she knew there was no other choice. She had to break the curse, no matter the cost. The phantom led Evelyn to the library where the final piece of the puzzle lay. In the farthest corner of the room, beneath a heavy tapestry, there was a hidden door. It opened to a stairwell that spiraled down into the depths of the manor, a place that had been sealed off for centuries. The air was cold and damp, filled with the scent of salt water. As they descended, the walls seemed to close in, the silence growing heavier with each step. At the bottom, Evelyn found herself in a vast chamber, the floor covered in ancient runes that pulsed faintly with power. In the center of the room stood an altar, a place where the ritual of the sea had been performed long ago. "This is where it all began," the phantom said, his voice somber. "The ritual that tied me to this place. The pact I made with the ancient sea god. The price for immortality." Evelyn looked at the altar, the dark symbols carved into its surface. She knew that this was where the curse had been forged, and this was where it would end. The ocean had once given the phantom life, but it had also imprisoned him. Now it was time to return to the sea, to break the bond that had held them both captive for centuries. "You must place your hand upon the altar," the phantom instructed, "and recite the words that will sever the connection. The sea god will hear you, and the ritual will be complete. But you must be willing to give up everything, your freedom, your soul, your life." Evelyn stepped forward, her hand trembling as she touched the cold stone of the altar. The air around her seemed to thrum with energy, the sea's presence growing stronger with every passing second. As she closed her eyes, she recited the ancient words, the ones she had learned from the phantom's journal. She could feel the god's power reaching out to her, drawing her in. The chamber trembled as the sea god answered, his voice a booming roar that shook the very foundations of the manor. "You dare defy me? You who have disturbed my slumber." The ground shook violently as the sea god's fury surged through the room. Waves of water crashed into the chamber, flooding the floor, pulling at Evelyn's legs and dragging her toward the altar. The phantom reached out to her, his expression a mixture of sorrow and warning. "You cannot undo the pact so easily," he cried, struggling to maintain his footing in the rising water. "The god will not let you free without consequence." Evelyn fought to hold on, her mind focused on the ritual, on the words she had spoken. The sea god's presence grew overwhelming, suffocating her thoughts, but she refused to yield. She had come too far to back down now. As the water continued to rise, a figure appeared in the distance, a shadow moving toward them through the flood. It was the sea god, his towering form materializing out of the water, a massive, ethereal being with glowing eyes and a body of swirling waves. "You dare challenge me?" he boomed, his voice shaking the air. "You, who seek to break the bond that has kept me chained for millennia?" Evelyn raised her head, her voice steady as she spoke the final words of the ritual. "I break your curse. I sever the bond." In that moment, the sea god's roar turned into a howl of agony, his form writhing in the water as the curse was undone. The waves crashed violently, but then, as if by magic, they began to recede. The room fell silent. With the god's defeat, the waters slowly began to drain from the chamber, and the stone altar cracked in half. The phantom stood beside Evelyn, his form fading with the rising dawn. His face, once filled with torment, now held a peaceful expression. "You have freed me, and in doing so, you have freed yourself," he said, his voice now calm. "The curse is broken, but there is a price to pay. The gods will not forget this day." Evelyn looked at him, the weight of her actions heavy upon her heart. She had freed the phantom, but at what cost? The god had been defeated, but his presence would forever haunt the sea. The phantom's form began to dissipate, his body vanishing like smoke in the wind. "You are no longer bound to this place," he said softly. "But remember, The power of the sea will always be with you. You will feel its call in your blood, and the ocean's whispers will follow you wherever you go. Days passed, and Evelyn left Blackwood Manor, but she could not forget the events that had unfolded. The ocean had calmed, but in her mind, the sea god's power still stirred. She had freed the Phantom, but the legacy of that curse would never fade. As Evelyn returned to her life, the whispers of the ocean followed her, ever present, ever beckoning. The sea, with its endless depths, had claimed a piece of her soul. And though the Phantom was gone, the world had changed forever. The sea's mysteries were hers to uncover now, for better or worse.